Well, welcome, dear friends. I know that people will be trickling in, and I hope that all of you are comfortable and maybe have a cup of tea or a cup of water. You might be sitting like me, or you might be walking, as such is the way of having online Sangha gatherings. And also, if you would like to lay down, I want to make sure that you feel permission to lay yourself down. Um, However, we are in our bodies, I invite us to fully arrive just to the here and the now, beginning to feel the cells of our body soften with our breath. And I'm really grateful for Sangha today. We have our dear friend Nomi Green. And before I'll ask her to introduce herself, I want to remind all of us some tech aspects. So we'll all remain muted until we're sharing, then we can unmute ourselves when we're speaking. And our call today will follow the normal flow. I really like the rhythm of a regular Sangha flow. I will have a practice and an offering from Nomi, and then we'll dive into our Dharma sharing families. And after that, we will have a sharing of the merit and then our outros, which is like an intro, but at the end of our call. A time for us to speak to the whole group, introducing ourselves, seeing where all of us are. And I invite you to make your settings for speaker view so that we can be present with the person offering. And you might like to switch to gallery view during Dharma sharing, but if you have any tech questions, please message me. My name on here is Sarah, pronouns she, they, and I'm here for tech support and general just holding the background container. I'm very grateful to be here with you all. The theme of our Sangha today is we are hardwired to be in Sangha. Um, and so I'll let Nomi share a little bit about that. And also, Nomi, if you're willing to introduce yourselves in case it's someone's first time in our Sangha today, want to warmly welcome you and say thank you, and it's wonderful to see you. Bowing out.
Wonderful to see you too, Sarah, with your hair growing. uh, I'll just say that I agreed to step in at the very, very last minute. So hopefully, uh, the little bit I share today will be coherent and helpful, and that it will be a little bit sciency. So I hope not too sciency. Um, uh, so I think I'll wait until. Well, the only thing that I'll say is that in part in our meditation, we're going to um, do a little connecting with any beings in our environment, like the being there with Sarah. How nice. And um, that's going to be part of what um, we share about today is connecting and how we are hardwired to be in Sangha. So I will save most of that until we begin. Uh, I don't know really what to say about myself. I have been hanging out with the Earth Holders for a very long time, since before beginningless Earth Holder time. And thanks, Sarah. Let me see if I can raise my volume. I can't raise my volume, so I will do my best to raise my voice and bring the computer in a little closer. Um, is that better? Okay. So I love, Sarah, that you started with getting our bodies comfortable in whatever way that is. And I encourage you to keep doing that, even when we say, as our teacher always instructed us to sit up beautifully like a Buddha. Uh, Sitting up beautifully like a Buddha can be in any position. So please make yourself comfortable. I will guide a little bit of a sitting and then give, uh, I think, a pretty short little sharing. So glad you're all here. So allowing the bell, the voice of the Buddha, to bring us back home into ourselves. And let's begin by connecting to our breath if that's comfortable for you. If it's not, feel free to just ignore any of my suggestions. So breathing in, I'm aware that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I'm aware that I'm breathing out. Connecting to my breath just as it is, whether it's long or short, choppy or smooth, deep or shallow, just accepting it as it is. If you haven't already done so, bring your awareness into your body, wherever it's comfortable in your body, anywhere where it's neutral or pleasant to feel the groundedness of your body. I love the sensation of gravity holding me right here. I don't have to do anything. Breathing in, I'm aware of my body. Breathing out, calming my body. Breath, body, calm. If you're feeling settled enough, feel free to move into awareness of everything around you, everyone, all beings. Outside my window, I can hear the ravens and some house finches and sparrows, and there's a dog in the room with me. My beloved is in a different room. So through sound. Perhaps we connect with beings that are nearby. And perhaps opening your eyes, if you like, to see. There's a big tree outside my window. Feeling our interbeing, our connection with all of the life near us. Breathing in, I'm aware of interconnection near me. Breathing out, I'm aware of interbeing, interconnection, interbeing. So, as I said at the very beginning, I stepped in at the last minute for a Sangha sibling who had signed up to be here today and wasn't able to be. So, I can tell my voice has a little, I don't know, something in it, so I hope you can hear me. Um, Thanks for those thumbs ups. I appreciate the encouragement. Um, so I've been enamored with this book that actually Lynn Fine, who's here, first recommended to me, called Anchored by Deb Donna. It's about uh, polyvagal theory, which sounds like a lot, um, but it's actually very practical. And there are a lot of exercises in it and meditations in it, awarenesses in it that are very down to earth. Um, and I was really taken by, I'm going to share my screen for a moment because I was really taken by this image that's in the book, um, which is a wood carving from a very long time ago of what's called the vagal nerve, which is actually many nerves. Look at all these nerve endings everywhere. And it's a little hard to see, but some of them are in the face as well. And so I just want to briefly, you don't have to remember any of the terminology, but you could just kind of let this wash over you. I just want to briefly lay out there are three parts to this called the longest nerve in the body. I want to call it the vagal nerves. It's also called the wandering nerve because it wanders everywhere in the body. And this first part down here, the digestion area, which developed 500 million years ago in a fish. Um, so this part of the vagal nerves is for digestion. It helps us rest. It's also the part, maybe you've heard the terms fight, flight, freeze. This is where the freeze impulse comes from, down here. So when everything's going well, we're digesting, resting, feeling calm. When things aren't going as well, this part of the nerve helps us to freeze, to save ourselves. So to play dead, like a possum or other animals that play dead so that something doesn't prey on it. This was developed in beings 500 million years ago in fish. There was no land life at the time. It was all water life, so in fish. And then 400 million years ago, this upper part, so I don't know, but I'm assuming these long parts of the nerve that go from the back of the head down to the sacrum were here all along, but that this is what down here really flushed out. And then up here, this is called the sympathetic part of the nervous system. And it is about us generating energy, bringing energy up, activating ourselves when we need to get something done or move or being in motion. It's also where, when things are not going so great, we're in fight or flight. So fight and flight up here, freeze down here. But then there's this third part, which developed 200 million years ago. These numbers are like vast. This part up here, 200 million years ago, which is connected through the heart and the ears, the eyes, our tone of voice, and how we move our head. And this is the part where we're hardwired to connect. 200 million years ago is when the first mammals lived here. I'm going to take this down now so I can see all of you. 200 million years ago, I read actually this morning, 210 million years ago was when the first mammals uh, were here, developed, and they developed from um, reptiles. It's like the timeline is unbelievable, right? You know, the difference between 200 million or 210 million, give or take 10 million years. It just feels like it's massive. Um, but as mammals, we cannot live without connection. So it's hardwired in us. Over 200 million years of hardwiring in us to be connected. And we connect through, I led us a little bit in the meditation through our hearing and through our sight. It's also tone of voice will connect us. We're connected through the heart. The nerve actually runs right through the heart. And it's also how we move our heads. So there are ways we can uh, participate in all of that that's welcoming or that's not welcoming. Um, as mammals, we would never make it without this connection. None of us would be here had we not had someone who fed us when we were too young to do it for ourselves and guided us. So while we had some instincts online, like how horses stand immediately after they're born, that's instinctive. But a horse can't survive without having a mother to nurse the horse, having a herd to be with. And um, so I find all of that fascinating. I'm going to switch to like a kind of different kind of science. I hope this is not too sciencey for everyone, but that there have been many mass extinctions that have happened over the life on this planet. Um, the first mass extinction that happened was before there was oxygen. The only life on Earth was anaerobic, meaning not living without oxygen. And then when oxygen arrived, it devastated all life on Earth. Everything died because these anaerobic organisms could no longer live with um, oxygen in the atmosphere. So then life was like reinventing itself. And similarly, 200 or 210 million years ago, um, there was another mass extinction where 50% of life on Earth died due to methane flaring in the ocean. So there were these giant methane flares that came up through the ocean, and the methane killed half of living beings on Earth. They say this was part of what allowed the dinosaurs to then come in and thrive. Um, but one of the things I read is that after mass extinction, everything innovates. It's like a highly innovative time on the planet after a mass extinction. So here we are in what is called the sixth mass extinction. And we don't really know what will happen next. Um, so I have told this story a number of times. A number of you here have already heard it a number of times, so please bear with me because I find this story to be absolutely miraculous. A friend of mine, a Sangha friend, uh, in New Mexico here we had the biggest wildfires we had ever had in this state in the spring. And a Sangha friend lives in the area that was burned. She and her partner and all their animals were evacuated for approximately 2 months. And when they came back, their house was still there, but the hillside all around them had burned. And what had been living on this hillside was ponderosa pines. And what was now coming up, what now is coming up there, are oak trees. So I find this so miraculous. Like, where did those oak trees come from? How did they get there? Like, where had they been hiding? What were the causes and conditions that brought up oak trees after ponderosas had been there? Like, were the acorns hiding in the earth waiting for this moment? Was it the fire that released something that allowed the oaks to come? And what seems even more like, so that's a miracle, a little mini miracle of the earth finding her way, in a way. Um, what's also really miraculous about this is that the oak is the keystone species here in New Mexico, as it is in much of the country. Oaks here um, support 279 insects and bees. So insects are very specific, who they eat, what they eat, and certain vegetation supports certain insects. But 279 is the largest number any vegetation supports here. So as insects are the species that then the little animals eat, and the little animals get eaten by bigger animals, they are called the keystone. Without the insects, the rest of the species up the chain cannot live. And so I'm just in awe of this, that somehow the oaks were what came back and that they support the most life. And when I think of this little line that I read this morning, that after mass extinction, everything innovates. So I don't know, in a way, this has been a very hopeful thing. This is why I keep telling this story everywhere I go, because it feels really hopeful that I don't understand how, but somehow the earth knew what to do. I don't know if that's too big of an anthropomorphic leap to say that, but somehow the earth knew what to do to have the most possibility of the most life being here. So there's a writer, Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, who edited this anthology, All We Can Save. And she's now working on a book that is not yet out, but the title is What If We Get It Right? So I don't know, but what if we get it right? You know, what if we don't screw this whole thing up, but somehow, and by we, I mean all of us, including all life, Earth herself and air, water, mountain, trees, insects. What if we were to get it right? So I want to say two more things. Had I had a little more time, this might have been a little more fluid. But one of them is how uh, thinking about slow time. So the massiveness of when we think of 500 million years or 400 million or 210 million years, when we think of the massiveness of that timeline, and then we think of the time of a life, or a human life in this case. I mean, the life of a butterfly might just be a couple of weeks, but the life of a human, uh, somewhere less than 100 years, and how small that is in relation to the vastness of these times we're talking about that evolution occurs in. And so I heard this concept of being a good future ancestor. So, how do we be good future ancestors? So, in the future, we will, in this form, not be here. So, when someone dies, that's when we call them an ancestor. They're now our ancestor. Even if they're much younger than us, they're still our ancestor. So, how do we become good future ancestors when we think in this very slow, long timeline? So, that's one question that appeals to me. And then the other is this piece about, I just want to emphasize this piece about, as you know, some of us might say, Sangha is enormously difficult. I can certainly say I have had great difficulties in Sangha at times. And yet, our body literally was built for Sangha. Our body literally, we are not made to be lone wolves. I, for many years, was a lone wolf. And we can, while we can learn how to do that, that's not how we were actually made. That's not uh, our biological imperative. Our biological imperative is to be connected, not to be separate. And in fact, literally, we cannot be separated. We all breathe this air. We can't say this is my air and that's your air, or as much as people try, this is my water and that's your water, um, because air and water don't see those boundaries. Trees don't see those boundaries. Trees grow where they grow. So there is no way for us to be separate. And so when our teacher, who would often say the next Buddha is a Sangha, personally, I don't have a clue how we're going to pull that off. It feels like a tall order, a big ask, and yet um, this polyvagal theory takes me there to, it's actually, we have no choice but to figure it out. So uh, that's all I have to say for today. I so appreciate all of you, your kind attention, and I hope there's something that will inspire you to continue on the path. Um, I'm going to pass it back to Sarah, who's going to give us a little instruction on breaking into Dharma sharing, and then